There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world. And that's why I am on the trail of a Nephilim.
The Genesis 6 narrative states that the Nephilim are on the earth in those days and also afterwards. If that's true, can we find evidence that corroborates this? I'm L.A. Marzulli. Join me as we go on the trail of a Nephilim.
Very special guest, Fritz Zimmerman. He's a colleague, a friend. We've been all over the place together. It's always great to have him here. And we'll get into this in just a minute. And we will be fair, but we will be firm, but we'll be fair. Anyway, folks, we'll get into that in a second. But first, a word from our trusted sponsor.
Did you know one of the leading reasons skin begins to sag and form wrinkles isn't necessarily because of old age, but because our bodies are missing out on essential collagen? Folks, we produce 10% less collagen every decade once we hit 30, and that's a major reason behind those pesky wrinkles. That's why, along with 10,000s of other people, we've all turned to this cutting-edge new substance to help reduce visible signs of aging. It uses the top 5 most researched types of collagen, which is essential for skin health, to support skin elasticity and skin hydration. The best part I love is you get 53% off for the rest of the month, or until they sell out, whichever comes first. Folks, get yours now by going to www.healthwithla. Once again, that's www.healthwithla.com, healthwithla.com. I promise you, you won't regret it. I take it every day.
So Fritz Zimmerman, you're joining us here on the trail of a Nephilim, folks. I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli, but Fritz Zimmerman, I'll tell the story real quick before we start into this, because it's worth noting. So I was going to a conference out in Newark, Ohio, and my battle buddy, who's passed away now a couple of years ago, Russ Dizdar, called me up and he goes, "Hey, do you know where you're going?" I go, "Yeah, I'm going to Newark, Ohio." And he starts laughing. And you have to know Russ, because when he laughs like that, you know he's got something up his sleeve. And he goes, "Are you buy the computer?" I go, "Yes." He goes, "Look up Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley, the Nephilim Chronicles." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, it's by Fritz Zimmerman." So I Google it. There it is. I immediately order the book, order the PDF so I can read it on the plane. I basically read it because it's about a 5-hour flight into Ohio. I mean, I just sat there like this the whole time, you know, of course on a laptop reading the PDF, and I got a hold of Fritz, and that's the beginning of Fritz and I have been, I don't know, all over the place in Ohio, and that where I think it's like 5 films we did together, and we just did number 8 or number 9, which will be released sometime January, February next year. We got to get the UFO stuff. More about that in the coming days. And what we discovered, folks, is absolutely unbelievable. But Fritz, thank you, sir. If it wasn't for that book, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So this is what we're going to talk about right here, and I'm going to read the headlines to you. The Newark Earthworks joins World Heritage Sites that include the Taj Mahal and Stonehenge. So they all got together, the powers that be, and they decided that the earthworks were built by Native Americans. And this is what they say. Earlham College professors Ray Hively and Robert Horn rediscovered the alignments in the 1970s and said the walls of the Newark Octagon define the most accurate astronomical alignments known in the prehistoric world. The Ohio History Connection noted all sites across the state were built between 1,600 years and 2,000 years ago and were complex landscape architecture. Masterpieces, quote, masterpieces, exceptional for their enormous scale, geometric precision, and astronomical alignments. After hearing the inscription, Chief Glenna Wallace of the Eastern Tribe of Shawnee in Oklahoma thanked the committee for recognizing the incredible knowledge of astronomy and her art her ancestors showed in constructing the earthworks. This is her quote: "They were not just geniuses, they were uncommon geniuses," she said. Before we get into this, Chief Joseph Riverwind, who is absolutely astounded by what's going on here, he just got back from Ireland. I was hoping he would join us, which would be great, but he's incommunicado. I guess he's up to his eyeballs and stuff. But Chief Joseph Riverwind was incensed. He sent me an article way back, Fritz, when you and I did On the Trail Volume 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But the article quotes Chief Joseph, Chief Joseph sent me the article, and it quotes Chief Wallace of the Shawnee tribe. Same woman that is referenced here. And she says on the record, regarding the Great Serpent Mound, that the Shawnee did not build the Serpent Mound. They did not do it. It was there when they got there, that they were caretakers of it. So that's all the quote really deals with. It doesn't deal with all these other sites. But here's what you and I have discovered, that there is advanced mathematics, number one. There is the knowledge of the 18-and-a-half-year lunar metonic cycle. And let's just stick with the octagon and the circle. We were just there. That's an unequal octagon that covers 50 acres of land. And the gates in that octagon correspond to lunar alignments. I mean, if the Shawnee did it, with all due respect, and before we even start, we're not here to disparage anyone. We're not saying that they couldn't have done it, but we have another theory, and it goes back to Fritz's book. It's Nephilim architecture, fallen angel technology. We're allowed to express our opinion. That's who we think the builders of these ancient earthworks were. Fritz, your thoughts?
Well, this Wallace lady said that, but earlier in the late 1700s, Chief Cornstalk,
right,
from West Virginia, when asked about the mounds and earthworks in the Ohio Valley, said the exact same thing. He said they were here when we got here, and there's a legend that they were just built by other people. And other people like Joseph Brant, who was an Iroquois, said there was a persistent legend that there was a white race that lived in the Ohio Valley and traded by consent of the Indians and were eventually ran off.
Mm-hmm.
But he was saying, of all the tribes east of the Mississippi that they talked about, but anyway, nobody said we built them. That, there was a consistency of amongst the Iroquois and the Shawnee, the Algonquins, that the mounds were just there when they got there.
And
this recent claim is new.
Yeah, I concur. What's interesting, we're quoting Native Americans. We're not making this up. We're not quoting Fritz Zimmerman or L.A. Marzulli. This is from the book 3 Years with the Comanche. And the chief Rolling Thunder is saying, this is the legend of the Comanches as he related it. Innumerable moons ago, a race of white men 10 feet high and far more rich and powerful than any white people now living here inhabited a large range of the country, extending from the rising sun to the setting sun. Their fortifications crown the summits of the mountains, protecting their populous cities. And it goes on for there. The bottom line is they're quoting 10-foot giants, which is what we maintain are the builders of these mounds. So, I mean, we're drawing not from what some, white settlers are saying. We're drawing quotes from Chief Cornstalk and Iroquois and the Comanche, just to name a few. Your thoughts?
Well, exactly. This isn't my idea.
No,
not my theory.
Right.
I'm just going back in history of Native Americans who were interviewed concerning the mounds, and the general consensus amongst all the tribes was they were there when they got there. So, and especially for the Shawnee, because they're the ones that are now saying the Serpent Mound is Shawnee, the Octagon, Shawnee, well, the 5 sites that went through UNESCO, SEEP, the Hopewell Group, and all of it. Now it's all Shawnee. And I don't know if I think the last time we were at the Serpent Mound is when they had all the Shawnee signs.
All the signage came up, right? I remember.
This is their, they were the builders of this. And even then, it's just like, wondering, like, how far is this going to go? So now it's just an umbrella.
Well,
it's all Shawnee.
The troublesome part to me is that all this was managed by a bunch of white guys. I mean, you can go back to where the Smithsonian, and I'll think of the guy's name in just a second. You know who I'm talking about. Basically stated
Cyrus?
this. Yeah. What's his name again?
Cyrus Thomas.
Yeah, Cyrus Thomas.
Cyrus Thomas. Yeah.
Cyrus Thomas states on the record that, well, Native Americans built this, but they just forgot that they had done so. Which, I mean, to me is such. How can he make a blanket statement like that? Which, here's a white guy saying, "Oh, you people just forgot that you built the mounds." But we know, and this is what drives both of us, and also Chief Riverwind. Native American First Nation people pride themselves in their oral tradition. So the challenge I would have to the lore keepers in any of the tribes and the elders, where is the oral tradition that says this? It's not, to the best of my knowledge, it's not there. We see the reverse. The giants were in Milan. We came in. These effigies, the Serpent Mound, the Octagon Mound, the Circle Mound, they were here when we got here. Your thoughts when you hear that?
Well, this claim that they were the originators is what, 6 years old?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, about 6. Yeah.
And then prior to that, they were still stating, which you quoted the woman saying that, no, we weren't the builders. But now I think that same woman is the one that went to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, she is.
Of all places.
Yeah, she is.
Who is going to decide whether, which I guess they did. And they were saying, well, now the Newark Earthworks stands on the same plane as the Great Wall of China and the Taj Mahal in India and all this. And what stinks is it's the Ohio History Connection that is now going to be maintaining these sites. And they're horrible. At Mountain City, which they showed all mowed, but generally during the summer months, they only mow that very central quarter. So maybe 25% of it's mowed, and the rest, they let the grass grow. And when I asked one of the DNR people about that, she said, well, that's to give it more of its natural look. And I said, well, they wouldn't have built these mounds and let 5-foot grass grow.
Right, no way.
I've been finding out more and more that the outside of these mounds may have been covered in like a clay-like substance. So they would have looked brown, or they may have got gray clay, red clay, and some of the mounds might have even been different colors, like at Mountain City.
Yeah.
But I've read like 2 or 3 reports now that I'd never read before, where they were talking about how the outside of the mounds, because they were talking about Newark, and they were saying the outside of it had a clay layer up, which I was always thinking that maybe they like wild strawberries, something like that.
Right.
But now I'm thinking mounds and all that was probably covered with clay, so nothing would grow on them.
Well, Chief Joseph once stated to me that he believed the Serpent Mound was lined with mica rocks. That thing would have glistened like a serpent, because the mica would have looked like scales on the Serpent Mound undulating through that. I mean, if that's true, that would be unbelievable to actually see something like that.
That would, well, I don't know. I mean, Mike is so fragile,
Yeah, it is. Right.
because it peels. I mean, any evidence, 2,000 years, yeah, you
Gone.
would never know.
The
But
other
that's an
thing,
interesting theory.
the other thing here is, and you and I, if we're still here, who knows? In 2025, the lunar standstill comes down and just sits there, in the octagon mount. We will be there, God willing. That's our plan. We'll fly the drone
Well, it's
up.
only 2 years away.
I know.
Not planning on catching my chips in.
No,
next 2
neither am
years.
I. Neither am I. I think we can do it, and we will be there with cameras and the whole deal. And here's the thing. I mean, if a person is trying to track, the moon comes up here one day, and it sets over here, and then that's one day, and the next day it comes up here and sets over here. Next day it comes up way over here. And, all you're doing, you've got a central place. You're putting a stake in the ground or a rock, but you're putting a stake in the ground and trying to figure out, okay, how does this thing work? You don't know it's an 18 and a half year lunar cycle, number one. You don't know. And you also don't know where you are in the precession. So, there are two unknowns. What if it's a 5-year cycle? What if it's a 20-year cycle? You don't know. So you're just jumping in and putting stakes in the ground. This is the Thom paradigm, who came up with this. And his paradigm just falls of its own weight, because you get a 5-day rainstorm where you can't see the moon. Now what? You got to start all over. And how do you crunch that data? I mean, if Native Americans did this, surely they would have a buffalo hide, something, a deer hide, some way of recording all those stakes and then figuring out, aha, we're back to the beginning. It's 18 and a half years, but there's nothing like that. That's just one particular. And again, we're looking at this from a scientific viewpoint, not trying to disparage Native Americans or anybody else. Europeans didn't know about the 18 and a half year metonic cycle until fairly, not recently, but thousands of years ago. Then they figured it out. But the Book of Enoch tells us that Sariel, a fallen angel, gave that information to mankind. But then we get into the advanced geometry, and we had sat down with a college professor, Dottie Eastley. This is all in the upcoming film sometime early next year. And on paper, Dottie shows us, it's just on paper, how complex it is just to draw this octagon, or just to draw a regular octagon with 8 equal sides. You need a protractor, you need a ruler, you need to know the angles. But this octagon in Ohio is an irregular octagon, and there are gateways which show, let's say here's a gateway. Oh, here comes the moon. I mean, and it encompasses 50 acres. It's like when we took everybody out there, everybody's blown away. You and I have seen it. We've walked it. We've flown with drone and did all sorts of stuff. We filmed all over the place. But the rest of the people that were there in the team, they'd never seen it. They were just blown away, just completely blown away by the enormity of it. So, the question is, if you don't know complex geometry, then how are you doing this? And to the best of my knowledge, there were no surveying tools in the archaeological record. There's nothing in oral tradition, Native American oral tradition, that shows a knowledge of geometry. I mean, why are they doing this? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, especially the surveying skills.
Yeah.
Now, we know that
unbelievable.
the 18-year cycle shows up at Stonehenge,
Mm-hmm.
that alignment. So
And
they
also
knew what it
America
was.
Stonehenge. Stonehenge, England, and also America Stonehenge. 18 and a half year
America
alignment.
Stonehenge. And now over here, so that's the line you can draw as far as knowledge being passed on. And I would imagine that, well, it depends on, what your latitude is. I mean, you couldn't draw a map to say, all right, minimum sets here, minimum sets here, because it depends on what latitude you're on. But there was something else you said I was going to put in. Oh, for our listeners, when we say 50 acres, think of this. Inside of the octagon and the circle is a regulation size golf course.
Right.
So imagine a golf course with a wall going around it that is a perfect octagon that is aligned each gateway to a lunar event. And then on top of that, go 6,500 feet, a little over a mile, and you end up at Geller Hill. And if you draw a perfect isosceles triangle, one will go through the gateway of the octagon, which I believe is maximum inset, and then it goes through the hinge, which I think is minimum inset, and draw a vector over a mile away from Geller Hill, and you get a perfect isosceles triangle.
And without surveying equipment, I mean,
Without surveying equipment.
yeah, I mean, there was one gentleman who was trying to tell me that, you get people in a line. Let's say you have 5 people like this. So number 5 jumps over here, okay, and they just keep moving people like this, and that's how you move a line over a mile, which is absolutely absurd. Good luck with that. It'd be all over the place. I mean, it's nonsense, utter nonsense. This is the surgical precision of these sites, the astronomical precision of these sites, and everybody, I mean, they recognize it. The experts understand that what we're looking at is something incredible, but in our opinion, they're giving kudos to the wrong entities, and I'll just use the word entities. Fritz, we're kind of at the 26-minute mark, roughly. I like to keep these interviews short and pithy. I'll give you the last word, and thanks so much for coming on.
Like you said, it's not to disparage anyone. And we have our views, and I have my theories because, my theory is that it was built by the Amorites because
I do too. I believe
they had
that.
the map.
Yep.
They had the surveying knowledge and all that. But for Native Americans, it's like, show me something in your canon of religion where the serpent was a symbol that you used in worship, that the octagon meant something to you, that the lunar cycle meant something to you, that the summer solstice, the equinox, the winter solstice, spring equinox, that meant something to you. But somewhere in the past, in your oral history, that years ago we used to be sun worshipers. Well, all right, I got a lot of things with that, so I would give them that if they figured that out. But I never hear that. It's just, we did.
Yeah, it's like, and we open this, this is our show. We are spirited individuals, fair individuals, and we invite anybody who wants to come on the record and set us straight, or come up with proof, or come up with something that would show that, well, Fritz in LA, you guys are off the wall. We've got this deer skin, or here's the oral tradition. But, we cited 3 different Native Americans, 3 different. These are not our sources. These are 3 Native Americans who said that there was a race long before they ever came into the land. Chief Joseph also believes that. We'll get him on the record. It's all in our films, On the Trail of the Nephilim. And, folks, they're available. You can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net or lamarzulli.net. And we're not trying to sell DVDs. I mean, we appreciate your patronage. We do. That's great. What we're trying to do is to show that there is a hidden history, and we're not being told the truth. And in my opinion, the real racist is Cyrus Thomas, who stands up and says, well, you guys built the mounds. You just forgot, but you had done so. I mean, seriously? Seriously? That is such a disparaging remark. I can't believe it. So, Fritz, thanks so much for coming on the record. Really appreciate it. And we'll pick this up again.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, we'll pick this up again when we get back from Israel. Thanks for coming on, Fritz. Appreciate it.